Our session today will be on bond valuation. To begin with, a bond is simply a long-term debt instrument. This is usually issued by governments or companies. Now, these issuing parties are actually the people borrowing. So if you're issuing a bond, you're in fact borrowing. So now, you need to understand a few features that a bond has. Number one, a bond is usually issued at what is called a par value or a nominal value. Now, the par value is simply also called the face value or the original value at which the bond was borrowed. It's actually the original price. Now, this bond is issued for a period at a maturity date. Now, the date which is on which the bond matures or is supposed to be repaid is called the maturity date. And the maturity period is simply the period from which the bond took effect to when it was and is supposed to be paid. Then we have what is called coupon interest. Now, coupon interest is simply the rate of interest that the bond issuer promises to pay. It's a percentage that is usually on the par value or the face value. So if you have a 1,000 kwacha bond which is issued at 10% coupon interest, so the coupon interest is a percentage, the coupon value is the monetary value of that percentage. We also have what we call a call provision, where the issuer of the bond may call back the bond before it matures. Of course, there's usually a premium that is allocated for calling back a bond, which is called a call premium. So in determining the value of the bond, we're going to look at the value of a par bond or a coupon bond, sorry. So we're going to look at these features. Number one, it should have what is called the coupon interest. Number two, it should have what is called the maturity value, which is also the par value. And number three, it should have two streams of interest. One interest is called the coupon interest. The other interest is called the market interest or the appropriate discount rate. I repeat, this is the easiest topic in corporate finance because things are very straightforward. So I'm going to use one method of calculating the bonds using the formula, unlike using the table. So Emma has a bond which is issued at 1,000 kwacha par value. The coupon interest is 10%. The market interest is 15%. And the maturity in years is 10 years. So you can see here there are two streams of interest. One is called the coupon interest. The only job of the coupon interest is to calculate the coupon value. And the coupon value is denoted by the letter I, capital I, which is simply the small I, which is the coupon interest, times the maturity value. So our small I, which is a coupon interest, is 10%, so 0.10. And our maturity value is 1,000, which is usually the case, unless otherwise stated, 1,000. So the job of the coupon interest is simply to monetize the interest. So here we're getting 100 kwacha or $100, which is our coupon value. So remember, the value of a coupon bond is simply given by, value of the coupon bond is given by the coupon interest or the coupon value, which is capital I. Then you multiply the present value of an annuity, then plus the maturity value or the face value, you multiply it by the present value factor. Now, before I delve into this as much, let me teach you the shortcut in calculating these factors. There are two factors that you need to know. There's the interest factor, the annuity factor. We use the present value in calculating bonds. So if you're given, for instance, an interest rate of 10%, and the time period is what? 3 years. So to calculate the interest factor, it's simply 1 over 1 plus r to the power n. So in this case, our interest is 10%, so we're going to have 1.10 to the power what? 3. 1.10 to the power 3. So when you calculate that, what you're going to get is, what are you getting? 1.10 to the power 3. Then you divide that by, what are you getting? 1.10 to the power 3. Then 1 divided by the answer. We get 0.751. Then to get the annuity factor, we simply subtract 1 minus the present value factor divided by r. So this is 1 minus 0.751 divided by the interest rate that we have here is 10%. Okay. So what you're going to get is 3.31. That is how we get the interest factor and the annuity factor. So if I'm going to make my example to say, suppose you are given a par value or a maturity value of which a bond was issued, which is 1,000, and we are told that the coupon interest is 15%. This coupon interest is issued for 3 years at a market rate of 10%.
I didn't find 3.31.
What did you find?
2.49.
2.49. Okay, great. 2.49. We confirm 1 minus 0.751. Yes, it's 2.49. So now, I said to calculate the value of the bond, you have 2 streams of interest. There's what we call the coupon interest, and there's what we call the market interest rate. So whenever the coupon interest rate is more than the market rate, we call this a premium bond. We call it a premium bond because you are making more on the bond. In short, the value of the bond will be more than 1,000. If the coupon interest is equal to the market interest rate, we call that a par bond because the value of the bond you're going to calculate will be exactly the face value, the original price you had issued it for. Lastly, if the coupon interest is less than the market rate, you get what is called a discount bond because the value that you're going to calculate for the bond will be less than what? The market or the maturity value. So in this case, suppose that this interest is 15%. So how do you find the coupon value? It is simply the coupon interest, small I, times the maturity value or the face value. So what is our coupon interest? 15%, 0.15. And what is our maturity value? 1,000. So when you calculate this, you're going to get 150. So what is the value of the bond? The value of the bond is simply given by the coupon value against the annuity factor, and the face value, which is the maturity value, against the interest factor. So the job of this interest rate, which is the market rate, is simply to calculate these factors. So our coupon value we already calculated is 150. And we calculated the annuity factor, which was what? 2.49. plus our face value, which is 1,000, multiplied by the interest factor, 0.751. So when you compute this, the value obviously will be more than the 1,000 that was initially the face value. So we're going to get 1,124. So this is how we calculate the value of the bond. This is how we calculate the value of the bond. When we divide this value of the bond by the coupon value, we call it the current yield. Current yield is simply our coupon value over the value of the bond itself times 100. We call that the current yield. So 150 divided by 1124.50. This is what we call our current yield. This is what we call current yield. So the current yield in terms of bond valuation is actually the return that we have, that the buyer of the bond expects to experience. This is the return or the percentage that the buyer of the bond expects to experience by acquiring this security now or holding it in the next year. So let's go through another question quickly so that we can understand how to apply the principle. Suppose we're given our coupon interest of 8% and we're given our KD, which is our market rate, of 15%, and our time in years is 4 years, and our face value was 1,000. We're asked to calculate, number one, an annual bond, number two, a semi-annual bond. So let's start with the annual bond. Annual bond, say the value of the bond is got what? The coupon value you multiplied by the present value annuity, then you had the maturity value, which will be multiplied by the interest factor. For the annual bond, we're going to calculate this interest rate, 8% of 1,000. All right. So how do we find capital I? It is small I times what? Maturity value. So what we have there, 0.08 times 1,000, what do we get? 80. So we put the 80 here. So to find our interest factor and the annuity factor, do you remember how to calculate the interest factor? The interest factor is simply found by 1 over 1 plus r to the power what? N or t. So which rate are we using? Is it this one? No, this one, the job has already finished. We're using this one here. So what are we going to find here? We're going to say 1 over 1.15 to the power time. Our time is what? 4 years. So our interest factor would be 1.15 to the power 4. Okay. When you divide that, we're going to get 0. The interest factor always starts with a 0.572. And find the annuity factor. Do you remember? Said 1 minus what? The present value factor. divided by R. So 1 minus 0.572 divided by what? The 15%, 0.15. So 1 minus answer. Okay, what are we getting? Final answer. 1 minus 0.572 divided by 0.15. We get 2.853. So now to calculate the whole value of the bond, we're going to say 80 times 2.583 plus 1000 times 0.572. So we get the total value of the bond as 778.64. This is the value of the bond. And how do we find the current yield? The current yield is simply the coupon value over the value of the bond itself times 100. So here we're going to have what? 778.64 divided by, or 80 divided by 778.64. Okay, which will give us 10.27 as our current yield. So this is how we find our bond. So how to find the semi-annual bond? We just divide our semi means 2. Our interest rates, we divide them by 2, and our time we multiply it by 2, and you redo the whole process. Okay, so semi means 2. So the interest rates here, we'll divide them by 2. So meaning our semi-annual bond will be as follows. Where there's 8%, we're going to divide by what? By 2. So 8 divided by 2 will be 4%. So meaning the bond itself will be what? 4% times 1000. So the I, capital I, value of the will be 40. All right. Then we go to the interest rate plus 15. So 15% divided by 2 will be what? 7.5%. And the time we had 4 years. Since it's semi, for time we always multiply. So here we're going to have 8 periods. So how do we find the present value factor? It is 1 over 1 plus r to the power n. The time still remains 4 years, but a period becomes 8 now. So here we're going to have 1 over 1.07 because we're now at 7.5% to the power 8. So our interest factor will be calculated at that point, 1.075 to the power 8. Then 1 divided by answer. So here our interest factor will be 0.561. To find the present value factor, present value annuity factor, we subtract 1 minus 0.561 divided by the interest rate, which is 7.5%, which is 0.075. So here we're going to subtract so we're going to get 5.773. So meaning the value of the semi-annual bond will be 40 plus the interest annuity factor, which is 5.773, then plus the 1000, which is the maturity value, then 0.561. So when you calculate that, final value of the bond will be computed. So our final answer is what? 791.92. So this is the value of the semi-annual bond. So we end here. We're just supposed to take 30 minutes. So I'll leave you with homework. Homework will be a copy I sent to you, which was written topic 2. So I want you to calculate the value of the bonds for questions 1, say exam questions. So you try any 3 questions on this paper. Then the next session will look at youth maturity and youth to core. So have a good day. Unless there are any questions, you could ask. So for a question like this one, where a bond was issued, the maturity is 10 years, but it was issued after 5 years. So you use the maturity period. So the period is 10 minus 5. If it is a 10-year bond which was issued after 2 years, the period is 8 years. So the maturity period from the definitions I gave you is simply the period between the time the bond was issued and the time it matures. So you need to take note of these key points that lecturers would want to confuse you on. So this maturity period is very important. Okay, I think that's one thing I needed to mention. Otherwise, have a good day. We'll have another class later on. Unless there are any burning questions, I have another class that is running.